Bricks and Minifigs is your one-stop shop for all things LEGO. Hit the link below to find a store near you.
Hi, my name is Sean Viers, and this is the Battle of Kursk. So some quick little history for the battle. So it was the summer of 1943, and the Russians had been pushed back to Kursk. There was a bulge or a salient in the Kursk line, and so the Germans launched an offensive in an attempt to kind of get rid of that bulge and straighten out the Russian line and push the battle forward towards them. And it ultimately didn't work out. They lost, and the Russians actually were able to push them back, and they kept pretty much pushing them back all the way until they entered Berlin in 1945. But Kursk is seen as one of, if not the largest tank battles in history. Lots of new German tanks saw combat in this battle, and I kind of got those highlighted in the mock here, which I'm sure we'll go through. But yeah, so I tried my best to highlight the scale in terms of the number of tanks that we got in the battle. Lots of vehicles on the field, but and it kind of juxtaposes the kind of plain-like landscape that Kursk kind of had. So yeah, that's pretty much the backstory of the battle. But I got starting on the kind of the right side. We got just a little town here. Kind of get some elevation. Got just two little Russian homes that I built just based off of some reference photos I had seen. And we got a T-34 tank pushing up through the center in between the two buildings. Got kind of like a medic bay over here. And also got two custom painted horses here, actually not by myself, by my girlfriend. She actually just kind of got into painting these, and we threw these on here kind of last minute. But
Very unique. I love that.
yeah, they were very, very well done. Kind of some nice touch to like the farmland that we got going on here with the fences and whatnot. But yeah, we got a kind of a commander general outpost here with the Soviet flag. And as we kind of push around to the front of the larger house, we got a crater here. It's been bombed out in the front. So I kind of tried to show the destruction there and the kind of the angle that it came in at the house, along with the debris that kind of fell into the crater as well. And then as we kind of move forward, we got kind of along the entire line here, we got ZIS-3 field guns, 76 millimeter guns that the Russians are using in the battle as well. And then we get to the trench line, which is one of my favorite parts of the build. One of the first things I actually did too was kind of lay out this trench. And yeah, I got lots of figures in there throughout, different, got lots of different kind of colors. I tried to keep, for the lowest parts of the build, the reddish brown, the dark brown colors, and then as you kind of come up in the level, it transitions to dark tan, and then eventually green for the grass, of course. And then as we kind of move forward here, well, actually, as you can see along the backside, as we kind of keep going forward, across the entirety of the mock, we got like a road lined with telephone poles as well. And even back there, we got another one of those guns and another crater with another crew in there. And then we got mostly T-34 tanks. And then right up front here, just in front of the trench, we have a KV-1 heavy tank, along with some soldiers following around it. And then just a little towards the back, we got one of the lighter tanks, the T-70s. Those were kind of some of the big tanks that they were using during the battle. Wanted to kind of highlight those. And then as we move forward, we kind of get into some more like farmland. Tried to use some of the smaller like branch pieces to simulate like crops and whatnot. And I got some little patches of like water, like some more dug out portions of the dirt that have kind of filled with water and whatnot. And then got another crater here with another Russian crew with a gunner. And then as we keep moving forward, we start to kind of get towards the German line with the tanks. Another one of my favorite parts of the build too is the tank, the T-34 with the turret blown off of it, and got the smoke trail behind it as well, which is pretty cool. One of my favorite parts. And then we start getting into the German tanks. We got a Tiger up front here, which made its debut in this battle. One of the biggest successes that came from the Germans' ingenuity in creating new tanks, upgrading from the Panzers. Throughout the build, I got mostly Panzer 3s and 4s, which were present throughout the Battle of Kursk, but it also saw, like with the Tiger, some newer tanks in the battle. Right up here, I got a Panzer 4 with the skirts on it, and it's been blown out in the front, and it's starting to kind of come to a stop. And we got this nice crater up front here, which is kind of half exposed from the border, so you can kind of see into how deep it goes and the level. And then as we keep pushing forward here, we got another Panzer IV behind it, and then this T-34 there. It's got the front tread blown off on one side. And another thing I tried to do throughout, which you might be able to see too, is especially behind the Tiger here, I tried to showcase the treads making some kind of imprint in the grass with tiles, and then for the dirt sections, exposing just the bare studs and like the dark tan portions to kind of show where the tanks were coming from, where their paths were trailing from. And got some more craters here, got some German soldiers pushing up, and kind of move on to, there's a Panzer III right there, and then just to the rear left of it, we have one of the other new tanks that saw combat in this battle, which is the Panther, one of the new German heavy tanks. That one was probably one of my favorites to put together, just in terms of getting the correct sloping and structure when I designed it. That was a fun one to build. And then just behind it as well, we got another new tank, which was the Ferdinand. So I tried to showcase here that the tank was well known in the Battle of Kursk for having lots of issues. They made a handful of them. They were supposed to be like the ultimate tank destroyer. They were one of the largest tanks, had one of the largest guns on them, and unfortunately they didn't really work that well. They were very heavy, and in the mud and whatnot, they actually tend to like break down and get stuck in the mud. So I tried to show that here with some smoke coming out of it and having it kind of entrenched in one of the dirt spots. And they would get stuck, and then they would even get the engine would get so bared down by the weight that sometimes the engines would catch fire. So although they were supposed to be these really bad destroyers, these super huge tanks, they actually didn't prove to be super useful in the battle. So tried to highlight that there. And then we got the rear of the German line up at the front, just behind it as they're kind of pushing forward. Got another Tiger up on the road in the rear of the Mach as well. So yeah, that's pretty much all of the individual sections. Like I said, I tried to highlight a lot of the newer tanks that saw combat in this battle, and also just get the grand nature and scale of given it was one of the largest tank battles with just the number of tanks.
The whole layout is really laid out very nicely. So I love how you kind of add the immersion of these shell holes here that kind of break the barrier a little bit there, and kind of invites you into the build a little bit. So when you start a project like this, how do you lay that out? Are you kind of sketching this out and kind of figuring out where the shell holes and things will be, or what is that process like?
Yeah, actually, that was one of the first things I did. It was the trench line and all of the craters I kind of mapped out just on like the flat base plates where I kind of wanted those to be. I had the road kind of mapped out as well. And then I built all of the craters first up to roughly the height I was going for. And then from there, I filled in the rest of the terrain, matched the levels and whatnot. But I kind of had those from the get-go. Those were put in the correct places where I wanted them to be, to kind of scatter them in a chaotic yet, spaced out way.
One of the interesting things with builds like this is always the research process as well, and clearly you've done a lot of that both for the battle as well as the individual tanks and vehicles. So where did you find information? What was the research process like?
Yeah, I found lots of good info via like both books, videos, websites on a lot of the specifics of the battle, the different fronts. There's like north and south German lines that were pushing through the Kursk salient. However, this one, my build in particular, doesn't necessarily represent either one. I kind of tried to keep it neutral just because I kind of had difficulty finding a lot of good reference photos. There were lots of pictures of, the individual vehicles and, some of the soldiers kind of moving up and, in their lines following vehicles. However, not a lot of images or reference photos of the actual combat. There were some paintings that I found that were kind of inspirational, but a lot of it was kind of up to my own imagination to fill in the blanks and kind of put it all together in terms of the actual layout.
Yeah. Do you know how many pieces or minifigs are in the whole layout?
I do know, I think there's over 100 minifigures for sure. I think close to 150. Piece count I'm not sure on. I'm pretty bad at keeping track of that. But I mean, I could probably venture and say it's in the tens of thousands, I would think.
I think for sure. And then what is the process like bringing this to BrickFair and setting this up at a show?
Yeah, so it's the layout is a 3x16 or 3x6 grid. I'm sorry, of 48 by 48 base plates, and so they all kind of break down and split apart. Everything was built separately, so there was nothing really overlapping. So those kind of all split up and went into separate bins. The vehicles kind of just all lined up in their own bin, and because there's not really a whole ton of buildings, there's just the two in the back. It was pretty easy to kind of transport it and get it all situated so it would make it to the drive. We're from Detroit, so it's about a 9-hour drive to get here, but usually fares pretty well. And this year, just because of the flat landscape, it was not too bad getting it here safely.
Yeah. Another excellent build. I always look forward to seeing your work at BrickFair every year. So thank you for all the effort and time and research you put into this here, and thanks for taking us through the layout.
Yeah, thank you for having me.